So, if you guys, got a question, not only is guys in BobCAD on there, but guys in the U.S. and around the world are always on it, asking questions, answering for us too. So that's pretty good. So this has become pretty popular. Again, it's a free sign up if you guys want. Go ahead and do that, and then feel free to ask any questions. And also we'll have announcements in here also too on that. So real good resource also on there. Like I said, guys not only in the U.S. but around the world are always on that too on that. So yeah, so let's go ahead and jump in here and stuff. So again, we got a make sure you got your add-ins set up here. I got mine checked off on both sides, on startup and everything, and active on add-ins on there. So make sure you got that set up in there. Yeah, just make sure I got the right dimensions also. So in here we got they got a new tab here that shows up as a BobCAM tab. We got our knowledge base. Knowledge base is basically our templates where you can set up holes, counterbores, tabs, and counterbore tab holes on there. You can set this up. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into this one here, but you can set it up with, if you were going to use, center drill and drill, what kind of rules, parameters are you going to set in there? Is it a single depth? Are you pecking? That kind of stuff in there. You can go in and, set this all up. You got chamfer rules. You got, a bunch of different rules for everything else in there that you may use in there. And you can add more and you can delete any sections in there. So knowledge base is basically for 4 things, either holes, tabs, counterbores, counterbore holes, and tabs on there. Utilities are basically directory subfolders converted. You can set those up if you want. Make templates on there. That's new. You can save out templates. You can reuse them if you want to. Again, it's one of those things if you want to use them or not. It's up to you. NC Editor. This, and I'm going to go ahead and open it right now because it does take a minute to open up first time for, sleeping, I guess, all day. But anyways, we've moved away from the Predator Editor. We went into this NC Editor now. On there. It is really nice to use. We're not going to be looking at the pro side of this when we do go in here. We're just going to look at the standard because that's usually what you get unless you specifically ask for it when you initially buy the software on there. So a couple of good features that I've found that I do like in this is that, instead of using the Predator Editor like we used in the past, is that even with the standard version, everything's color coordinated. So all your G codes are all one color, your Ys and everything, raw text are different colors. So it makes it a little bit easier on there. That's a really good thing, especially, a lot of guys, do like that. So they don't have to worry about getting pro for this anymore. Also, you got in here is we still have RS-232 cabling system in here. So again, you'll set up your port, set up all your serial connections right here, and then you got your communication protocols if you need to set those up. And you can send or receive from your machine as if you're using an RS-232. So we still have that capability also on there. Also, you can use this as a, lack of a better term, a glorified notepad. Again, if you need to make any changes for whatever reason, you can definitely do that, save it out, and then move on from there with that. So the NC Editor, I like it a lot better now than I use it a lot more than I use Predator Editor, believe it or not, on there. And also another real nice thing is if you used, Predator Editor in the past, and we're moving it. Like I said, we've phased into this NC Editor now. The cool thing is that if you see something, if you open it up, you review the code on there, and you see something you don't like, you can minimize, like I just did on this. Once you post out your new code and then open up NC Editor, it will automatically change it over. You don't have to close it out like you did in Predator Editor back in the day, where you had to close it out and then reopen it from there. Nope, you don't have to do that anymore. So that's another great thing about that also. Then we have our simulation button here. Again, I like to use the simulation and then exit simulation when we're going in and out of simulation on there. We got our new job, which we'll get here in a second. And then we have our settings here. Settings is where you can set up your general, where you can set up your directory folder, your CAM tree flyout. We'll get into that one here in a bit. That one's kind of nice. And then we got our data collection. What that is that we're picking up information of clicks that you're using within the BobCAM software. Now, with that said, we have no clue who you are, where you're at in the world doing this. Okay, so you could be off in a safari in Nairobi, outback in there, and then we have no clue on there. All we're doing is collecting data of what you're picking buttons on. So if there's something that, that may be on the fence that they, may be deleting from the software in the next version or something, they'll look at the statistics on there and say, hey, only 3 people out of, 500 have touched this button. So, and again, it's not often that they do. They may get rid of it. Something like that, whatever they use as their statistics in there. So if you want to opt out of it, go ahead and in the settings here, go ahead and uncheck that. With that, and I do this, I uncheck mine just because I'm one of the trainers and I go through all the buttons, so I don't want to skew their data and stuff. That's just my reasoning for getting rid of it. Other than that, if I was just an everyday user, I'd probably just not even worry about it and just keep it on. Then we got our default documents and current documents. Again, you can choose either one. You're going to have a little button down here so you can apply everything to what you did on one to the other in there. So if I go here, apply to document, which means current document. If I go to current document tab, apply to default on there. In here you can change your your CAM tolerances if you need to, your simulation tolerances, and also your default machining order. And then you can also set up the color of your toolpath in here. And if you hit the drop down, you'll get this little color pattern showing up here. So I'm going to choose like that green. I'm going to hit apply to default. And then with that, I'm just going to hit apply and OK. So now instead of having a purple toolpath, I'll have that green color in there. And again, you can choose whatever color you want, And this is, for everybody along the way here. And I've come across a lot of guys now, quite often. Yeah, in the past couple of months, guys are, colorblind. So I show them, where to go and change all their colors for all that stuff. And the SOLIDWORKS, I don't know exactly where you can do all that, but I know you can do it. But in the CAM software, I can show you that on there. Because that's been coming up quite recently now on that. But anyways, with that said, there we got our new job. This is where we're going to click on new job, machining job. We're going to either choose milling, turning, mill turn. Only options we got there. Now, again, yours may be grayed out and some, 1 or 2 of them. On there, or they may be all active on there. In this case, we're just going to do turning, and then right down below there is our machining options here. So again, if you download, now in the past, we've had everybody use BC2X Lathe. It doesn't matter what post, we just default the machine there. We use the same machine. If you guys don't have Machines M Pro, on there, we use the same machine. We just call it something different in there. So if you're running a Haas, you're going to see Haas, Lathe, OEM, machine, and post. Same name for machine and post on here. I'm going to use the BC2X Lathe, but you can see here I got the Mach 2X, Mach 3 2X Lathe, Masio, Mazak, Akuma, whatever was in here on that. So, and then we got default templates. Again, if you set up a template, where was it? Under utilities there. You can reuse the template over and over again if you want. Again, it's one of those things, if you want to use it, you can. If not, you don't have to. From there, you want to make sure Start Stock Wizard is checked off. If not, you'll have to right-click on Turning Job and then go through the Stock Wizard from there. We'll go ahead and check that off. First thing is they ask you is select your workpiece. Again, if you got a solid model on your screen, which you should in SolidWorks, unless you got some complex geometry that you need a 2D geometry to perform your lathe toolpath, then you can definitely, you wouldn't have to worry about this. But with the select workpiece, what that's doing is asking you to select your final workpiece that you got on your screen to utilize in the simulation portion of the software here. If you don't select it and you do have a solid model on your screen, it will utilize that as the workpiece anyways on there. And the workpiece is just a cross-reference and using the simulation as for gouging, not cutting enough, that kind of stuff, verifying your toolpath in there. So in this case, we're not going to worry about that. So we're going to go ahead and hit the next button and we get into our stock specification here. So in here you got cylinder and revolve in here. And if you set up a coordinate system, which you hopefully you did, you'll want to go ahead and set that up in there. On there, so you make sure our stock is going in the right direction also in there. I know how to set the geometry or the coordinate system up in the software. I'm a little clumsy at it, so I'm not going to go through and do all that. But from there, you'll want to go ahead and set your size in here. So, if I do 5 inches, there it is right there. I can go a little bit more on there, but I'm going to leave it as is. That should be pretty good for right now. And then that's my internal diameter. If I want to set one up in there, I can if I want to. My length, I'm going to go, let's go 6 inches. And there we are. Now, as far as the Z stock in here, this is kind of, depending on how you want to utilize this here. So bear with me here. There we go. So right now we're sitting at 0 on here. If I come in here and change the stock orientation to, let's say, 0.25, you'll notice the stock moves out 1/4 of an inch. Now the reason is that when we do it, if you do a facing on there, you got 2 options, either from stock or custom. I'm going to show you both ways on here. From stock, we'll look at the stock protruding out from there and say, okay, we got that much to cut to get down to the 0 position. Or you can use custom and put in that 0.25 in there. But the one thing you will and won't see in the simulation is that stock being cut off. It'll just be imaginary, basically. So you use it as the way you want on there. You can add the stock origin if you know how much you're really taking off, or is it something that you're just going to set at your machine? You can put custom in there, and just put some sort of number in there if you want, or you don't have to worry about it at all. On there, if you're taking one pass and you're just going to do a final pass anyways on there. So from there, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the next button, which brings up our machine setup and our clearances. Machine setup should be already set using that coordinate system. If you want to set any clearances in the face, you can definitely do that. Those are already preset. 9 times out of 10, I've just seen guys just utilize, the numbers in there, not worrying about anything else on there, just using the defaults on there. Once you got that all set up, from there, we just hit the check mark to say everything's good. Any questions or anything so far with that? All right, so moving on here, we got 2 options in here. We got our CAM defaults and turning job. Defaults is where you can start a new job from template, This is a new area. You can go to current settings, cutting conditions, default DMS, and that's default machine strategy there on there. So let's see, new job, we know what that is. Current settings, and this is a default setting here too. So any new job that you do, this will be already set up in here. So I'm going to go ahead and choose, oops, let me go back up here, Lathe, just so everything changes on there. You can add your own machine. You can delete any of the machines in here. You can modify any of the machines that you want, and you can set one as a default. So if you do have multiple lathe machines, make sure you set one to your default, whatever, and I always say whatever the primary one that you use the most, use that on there instead of, you know, or whatever you want to do. It's up to you on there. So down here we got our maximum, and this is stuff that you may want to set up anyways. So, you know, how many tools, number of tools do you have on your machine? Rapid feed move, that I kind of leave alone there. My spindle and cutting feed rate. Now, I kind of set those up way over of what I would normally do, just because, you know, if you set something up, you know, and this numbers are down lower than what you usually do, it's going to come up with that max number in there. So if you make it over what it is, then you're for sure going to get the right numbers coming out on there. Usually that's a call to tech support, you know, and they'll go in and check everything out, and then they'll see that that's the issue right there. Machine definitions, unless you got a Machine Sim Pro, you're just going to get, this is what your basic 2-axis lathe and simulation is going to look like. Now, we don't have a lathe machine set up in our simulation, so we're not even going to see one at all on there. We just don't have any work pieces for it or anything on there. But we got all the, you know, X and Y's, you know, Z's all set up and everything in there as far as, you know what values we need and stuff in there on that. So again, usually, and then when you download like a Haas, Fanuc, Mach, whatever it may be, Cincinnati, Centroid, whatever it may be, the setup's pretty much the same on there with that. So again, yeah. And then we got our posting section. So here's where your post is going to be set up, the location that it's going to be set up in, your NC file path, and NC extension. Now again, if you downloaded a post or got a post from our post department, either a modified or a post request, unless it wasn't specified, they're going to put in a .nc in there. So it's a good thing to always go through the default settings here so we can get this all set up. One shot, one kill on this. So with the .nc, that's pretty much the normal one that we use, but if you're using a .txt, GCD, just a dot in some cases, this is where you want to change it at. Program number, I'd say leave that one alone, because if you change your program number all the time, there's other ways I'll show you how to change that. There's a couple different ways we can do that. Just leave that alone. Absolute incremental, always leave it to post settings anyways on there. I want to say like version 5 and below, or maybe 4 or 3, I don't remember. Anyways, you're able to change this within the current settings on there, either use an absolute or incremental code in there. If you want to use, it's defaulted to absolute in your post. So if you do need an incremental, let our tech guys know. They can either set you up with a post modification to get that set up in there, or you can, or I think they can probably do it real quick also. But definitely get with our post game guys with that. If you use sequent numbers, we always default it to 1-to-1. If you need a 2-to-1, 2-to-2, 5-to-1, whatever you're using, 10-to-10, you can set those up right there. If you're using sub-programming, you can set those up. All the other stuff is pretty much for, well, the use transform plane and machine rapids. That's more for milling. And how does your lathe output? Is it theoretical point or cutting arc center? Which one do you use? Then we got output automatic numbering here, or comments here, excuse me. If you have that on your post and you utilize that, we'll get to that here in a minute. You can use this on there, and you can put in raw text. It'll output in your post, and then when you can see it on your machine. So once everything's done, you got all your changes made, make sure you come over here, hit save as default, and then click OK. Also in the default CAM defaults here, we got our cutting conditions. If you need to set up any cutting conditions for center drills, pecking, drills, ream, chamfer, counterbore, bore on there. You can set those up so you don't have to go in and, do it by hand when you go into each operation if you utilize those on there. Also, we have our CAM defaults here. So dynamic machining strategy defaults here. What that is that, we'll look at lathe here and the turning template. So you got rough and finish, repeat finish. Maybe that's not a good thing to use here. Actually, yeah, let's go to lathe here. Lathe hole. So by default, it is set up for lathe center drill and drill. If you don't use a center drill all the time, you can get rid of it. So every time you click on, you go into lathe hole and you click on lathe hole in the machining strategy, you won't see lathe center drill anymore. You will see just drill in there, on there. So that's something you can utilize if you want on there. But again, it's up to you, and it's something that you guys don't have to change immediately. You can kind of get used to the software and change it later on within the software at sometimes in there. So again, it's kind of up to you, whatever you want to do with that. Then we have our tool library. Our tool library, come on up. There we go. So it's a little different format, a lot nicer, a lot more streamlined here. In the default settings, you're going to see not only your lathe and drill section here, but you're also going to see mill, generic, laser, plasma, water jet. Again, it's default because we don't know exactly what you're doing with it, even though you do have it all set up here. Anyways, if there's something that you want to, and right now it's automatically in a modified section. Unlike our previous softwares with the older version of the tool library, this is in a modified section now. So you can just go in and modify any of our tools real easily. You can change tool material if you need to. You can use custom feeds and speeds if you want, however you want to set this up. In here, you can also add your own. You can delete any one of these that you want to, delete if you want. You can also save out and, give it to somebody else if you want to. If you guys are, working on the, if you got, different machines, or you got one machine with certain tools on there, you can definitely, save it out and then give them the tool library. So then you don't have to go in and try to remember what everybody's modified in there. We also have import from in here. Now, with this, we got, you can lathe tools, XML library. You also have this machining cloud. We're not going to get into that one here, but with the machining cloud, you can go. In fact, I'll actually pull up the website here. Bear with me. I'm not going to go in and how to do everything, but it is real nice to utilize. A lot of things, and I've used this in the past before. I don't have it set up right now for the SOLIDWORKS, but in the like our internal cutting there, boring bars, there was not a way to V8 and below, or no, V7 and below. V8, I had the machining cloud in there, but anyways. We had to go in and modify the holder just visualize it in the simulation. We don't have to anymore. You can download it through the machining cloud, and we got videos online in our YouTube that will discuss how we go into the machining cloud and set that all up and everything on there. So that is really nice to utilize in there. So again, you can set up feeds and speeds if you want. You can assign, tool holder, geometry if you need to, that kind of stuff. In there, you got our whole lathe section here: rough, finish, grooving, threads, boring, cutoffs, that kind of things in there. So again, you choose one, you can go in and modify it if you need to in there. So while we're on the tool library here, let me bring this over here. So here, I guess I got a spooky thing here. Let's see. Okay. So somebody else has been added. So anyways, tool manufacturer here. Here's all of the tool manufacturers in here. Again, if there's something that you guys don't see in here that you utilize even more, you can request a new publisher. I've done this a few times on there, and I don't know what's happening with them. But anyways, I have requested some in there, so you can definitely check this out in there. You just pick Kennametal, and I'm going to search the catalog now. I think I'm logged in. And it is a free sign up in there. So let's go turning, and we'll go ODID, internal machining. So you can see how you can just kind of break it down. We'll do that one, and we'll just do some. I'm just picking something here. So in here, you can come in and check out, whatever we got in the library or what they have in the library. You can select one, kind of see, what it is, and, applications being used for in there, definitely on there. And then within, okay, so I'm not signed in. Bear with me. Thank you for the spooky. So we can, let's see, create a new tool assembly. We'll click on that. Brings you to this page here, and now it prompts you. Here's what you've added here. You can add a call it adapter if you need to, or add an insert. It'll take you right to the inserts that you can possibly use. You choose that. It's got a different section. It has an arrow here. It's got multiples in that section. So you can choose that and say add to assembly. And then once you get that all set up and everything, you just hit export. And you choose, what cloud partner you want to utilize here. These are, I don't know why we're still a recent one, but okay. And here you just choose BobCAD-CAM, and it downloads a zip folder. Again, I'm not going to go too far into that one. That's about as far as we'll go with that on there. Again, and it's real nice because then you can import it into the tool library, and it'll actually show that holder and and the tool in there. So it makes it real nice to see in the simulation. Let's see, adapters, I'm not going to be worried about. Thread library, we'll get to in a second. A lot of this stuff is, it's a CAM default, so it's a lot of stuff set up for milling. Material library, not much to that because we don't base the feeds and speeds off the material for the lathe feeds and speeds, so it's all for milling on there. So again, you'll just make sure yours are set up either via the tool library or set it up on the tool page on there with that. So, and then we got our thread library. So if you do need to edit or add any threads, you can go ahead and go through our thread library and utilize that in here. So you can just add threads, fill all the information, or modify this thread, modify what you need in there, and do that if you need to on there. Let's see, everything else should be good. All right, that should be good for that. Next here we have our turning job. We got current settings. Now, with the turning job and current settings, it's only for this job and this job only. The one with the current settings under the CAM default, that was for anything in the future that we're going to be doing, you know, our next lathe job. So again, in here you can set up, you know, if you hit the square with the 3 dots in there, what machine are you going to be selecting on there? Any of your machine parameter you need to change, you can do that in there. We got posting in here. Again, same kind of setup as in the default, so I won't go through every one of them there. And make sure output automatic comments are set up or checked off in here. Because next one down here, you can user comments. These, if it's set up in your post, the output user comments and checked off in the current settings here, either in the default or the job level, you can add in raw text in there, which you know, will show up in your post process. So if you need to make any, you know, notes in there or information for either you or the machinist to read before they run the part, it'd be good to, you know, you can put it in the notes, and like I said, it's going to show up as raw text on your NC program there with that. So you can definitely do that if you need to on there. Next thing we have is machining order. If you need to set up a machining order, different machining order, you can definitely do that. You know, by default, you know, if you're going to use, let's say, do a facing and OD turning, and you're using the same rough and finish tools, what it'll do is it'll do the rough facing and then the rough turning, and then it'll do the finished face and the finished turning on there. This is where you can come in if you want to do the complete facing first. You can reorganize it, either be individual feature, tool machine setup, or individual tool, or selecting it and then using the arrows either up or down. You can definitely do that. Post and save as. You'll never see me hit post and save as. I'll always hit post just so I can see the G code. I can post it later on if I need to on there. So I do have that option in there. Again, I got my post. You know, I can post out in there if I need. You know, and then I can take it into NC Editor. Post and save as allows me to save it out if I know the post is going to be good. Which, you know, we hope everything's going to be, but sometimes you're going to make changes in there. Then we have our generate sheet setup and save. Again, I'm just going to do generate sheet setup. You got full sheet setup in here on this, or you got different setups, either a mill setup, simple, toolless setup. We'll look at a full sheet setup. Again, this is going to just be something generic that they have in here. It's probably going to be, yeah, it's got a 4-axis lathe or 4-axis SOLIDWORKS part file. Anyways, that's just what they got in here. In here, we'll come back in here when we do get some, when we finish off a part in here. So you got your stock information, your tools, and your cycle times and everything, all the information in there that you need. Also going to have, you know, the cycle time here, you know, number of operations, tools, all that information in there. And this is good to use if you need to, you know, just for an example, one company I worked with, guy would program the parts, or the parts, generate the G code, put that on a flash drive, print this out, put it in a plastic cover sheet or clear plastic cover sheet, and then put it on a machine for the machinist to, you know, when they come in for that day or night, whatever shift they were working, they would, you know, utilize the, you know, that paperwork and everything on there. So they knew what they were doing that night. Also in there, you know, people, I've had one company, guy used it for his finance office. So he would either print it off, hand it off to the finance, or email it, however they did it. And then that's how they billed the customer with what they did here. So there's a couple ways you can definitely utilize that if you need to. Again, we'll be going into that one here. And then you can go through simulation. We got our toolpath statistics. On here, you'll have, total time. Then you'll have your breakdown of each toolpath that you can go in and check out. Again, this one is just to see right on the fly here. Turning job, let's see. Whoops. Update geometry and compute all toolpath. For some reason, if I made a change, like in the stock for whatever reason, I went ahead and moved that stock or the Z0 or the Z stock here back to 0 on there. So instead of going through every one of the toolpaths and reselecting all the geometry and recomputing, I can utilize this update all geometries and compute all toolpaths from there. I got my post yes and no and blank yes and no. Post yes no's allows me to, if my machine can't handle a lot of code at one time, I can do a post yes no on there, and it'll and then I can just click on it and I can pick and choose what code to run or not run. Blank on blank allows me to blank out my toolpath, or I can unblank everything, on that. So that allows me to do one or the other. Cutting conditions, again, if you need to utilize that. And again, the cutting conditions here is only for this job and this job only, not for the default ones that you saw up here. Save template, work for save defaults, you can definitely do that. You can delete this job, you can collapse everything if you want to or expand it, and you can also rename it. Also in here, let's see, you got your default templates here. You got your machine here. If you want to just right click, you can change your machine. If you want to keep your machine the same and change the post, you can definitely choose that, and then it takes you right into our post lathe section there. Turning tools allows me to go into the tool library here. Once this comes up, you'll notice that now it's set up for the lathe section. So you got all your drills, taps, counterbores, reamer, and boring in one section, and your lathe tools. You won't see milling or wire or lathe or not lathe, laser plasma water jet tools in here. These are just strictly for lathe operations, either drilling or lathe tools. Let's see. Verified tool assignment. We'll come back to tool crib here. Verified tool assignment allows you to come in and see all the tools that you're utilizing, and if you need to change the numbers of any of them, you can uncheck that. Double click in each of the tool number boxes here and change the tool numbers so you can post it out with the right tool numbers. Tool cribs allows you to import or save. So if, let's say for an example, you on your machine, you got only certain tools that you use, and that's all you use. You can import them or set them up by using the tool categories here. You can save it out. So every time you go in and do a lathe job, you can always import that lathe. Let's see, do I have one in here? No. You can import that lathe tools in there, so you don't have to worry about going to the library and everything in there. It's all going to be set up for you. So it should be under technology and cribs. Okay, so I don't have anything set up in here. That's fine. Or if it's a certain job that you're doing, you want to make sure you use the correct tools, you can come in and create that tool crib. Now do this before you ever put one toolpath on there. Once you put one toolpath on there, you're kind of SOL on that. So just make sure you're using, you go through the stock wizard, and then I usually say once you're done with the stock wizard, go to the tool crib, either import or set up your tools, whatever you're doing. If you got multiple machines and they utilize different tools, that'll be another good thing that you may want to, and you only got one software here, and then, you can utilize it that way too. You can, you got your Haas tools, you got your Mach tools, you got any sort of your Fanuc tools that you're using. So you can set it up that way too if you want. So tool cribs are actually really great to use and utilize if need be. workpiece. That was in the first page of our stock wizard. If you need to utilize the workpiece, again, if you have a solid model on your screen, that will be used as your workpiece also, so you don't have to worry about all that. Then we got our stock here. So, if you want to change the stock material, you can definitely do that. But remember, we don't follow, what's in the feeds and speeds for that. So, but if it is set up in your post to, output what material you're using, you may want to change it on there, person at the machine or even yourself. If you're programming and cutting it also, there have been accidents where, you got to set up for carbon steel and you're actually using aluminum or you're using wood, and for some reason they just put in a material that is on the G code. Happens. I've heard about that a couple of times. But yeah, you can definitely change that. If you right click on stock, you can go into stock wizard here. If you need to set that up again, you can change the color of your stock if you need to. Or you want to, you can change the transparency. The lower you go, the darker that stock's going to be. But remember, see how hard it is to kind of see the stock in there? I may need to utilize that for picking my geometry for toolpath. The higher I go, more invisible it's going to be, so I wouldn't have to worry about it. Or, let's come back down. Ooh, let's go. Whoops, let me drag hold on. Right there's fine. I can utilize this blank unblank on there. And if I click on stock, it kind of shows up. If I click anywhere else in my CAM tree, it goes away. So I can definitely do that on there. Any questions or anything so far? All right, so let's go ahead and throw in a few toolpaths here. So we're going to right-click on Machine Setup 1. You got all your different toolpaths here. Let's do a lathe end face here. So with that, let's go ahead and select our geometry, and we'll select that face. And that's pretty much it. So we're just go ahead and say OK. And then we're going to go ahead and hit Next. This brings up our feature page. So you got region 1 and region 2. It depends on what direction you want to cut this. You want to go in a downward or upward motion. That's up to you. You can do this from stock. Again, it's looking at what you set up in that Z origin in there on that. Or you can use custom in there and you can set that amount right there. You can use extensions. A lot of times when I've done this and when I've done this, I've usually done my extension instead of going right to 0 on here. I'll put in minus 0.25. Just as a crazy number, just so it goes past the center point. So instead of leaving that, sometimes it could leave, depending on the tool and how much it's worn down, it could leave that little tit in there at the center point. So you may want to go past center a little bit on there. Again, I'm just putting kind of an obscene number in there. So from there, we'll go ahead and hit Next. You got rough, and we got rough and finish. You can also set up, user-defined template through our DMS defaults if you want to do that. You can definitely do that. So in here, you got your rough and finish in here. If you want, another rough or a finish, you can bring it over from the available operations. If you want to get rid of one of them, you just hit the red X. Make sure it's selected in the blue. From there, we hit Next. We get into our posting parameters. You want to do a separate moves or can cycles, depending on how you're posting your machine and you are set up on this. From there, we go ahead and hit Next. We got our tool page. So I'm going to use all system tools, so it's going to default and choose whatever tool I want to use. In here, I think I should use. So I can go into Tool Crib, choose my tool category, and then hit Add from Library. In here, I'm going to choose, let's go 364s, and I'm just going to say OK. There it is right there. My mounting orientation, I can change that if I need to on there. We'll go back to 1. If I need to angle it for whatever reason, I can. I just do it in 35 degrees, or I can go minus 35 or 45, whatever it is on there. Minus 35. If I do a 0.35, it's a little bit different on there. But in here, we're going to use 0. And I can use automatic tool numbering or not in there. You can see it's going 1, 2 in there. Let's use that one because that's the one we want to use. Whatever is in royal blue, that's what's selected. So from there, we'll go ahead and hit OK. You can show the tool holder if you want. You can set up any other information in here, tool orientation if you need to. You can fill out all this information if you want to adjust anything. You definitely can. You can either go vertical or horizontal with that. Again, choose what position you want to use. You can set, again, another angle in there if you wanted to, if you need to. You can use machining numbers, so you can change here. You can come up here, uncheck this. And again, this is part of your verified tool assignments in here. So, I'm using this one right here. I can call it, 357 in there if I needed to. Also, I can use either RPM or CSS, and I can adjust my feeds and speeds from here if I need to on that. I can either go in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction. And my coolant, again, I can set that up if I need to. So depending on how your machine is, you may, if you don't have any coolant at all, you can definitely turn it off. But if your code doesn't mind, and it won't give you any air on there, you can leave it on flood, oil, mist, or air on there. Do whatever you need to do in there. From there, we go ahead and hit next. We get into our patterns. So we're going to do a standard cut in here. System comp, we can either turn it off, we can do it on or without collision detection. If you use on, you can always check your tool holder also. If you need to, you can use G41, G42. Parameters, you got your depth to cut, how much you're going to take off each time, how much you're going to leave on your finish allowance, and if you got a roughing toolpath, another allowance that you want to leave, go ahead and set that right there by checking that off. What kind of overlap do you want to utilize in here? Either previous no overlap or custom distance. And what kind of corner type are you utilizing if you're using one? From there, we'll go ahead and hit next. And we get into our rapids here. Now, again, I'm going to use just default settings in here for maybe for an internal cut. I may do something a little different. Other than that, I'm going to keep mine at default because every lathe person I talk to, they utilize something different every time on there. So you got different choices in here for the approach and exit also. From there, we go ahead and hit next. We get into our leads. So you can set up your leads in any way you want and set up the length if you need to. In there, custom will give you a Z and X direction in there. So in this one, we'll see. Let's just do a parallel lead in and a parallel lead out. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say apply to all operations, meaning when I come down here to the leads in here, it will be the same. I don't have to go in and change them. From there, we got our advanced feed rates. If you need to utilize those, convert rapids into feed or under the general override. That's common on every one of our toolpaths. And depending on what toolpath you're utilizing, you'll have different options in here. For like this one, you got lead in and lead out percentage value. So right now it's going to go at 100% of the feed rate. Unless you want to change it, you can check those boxes and maybe do like 30 on the lead in and 150 on the lead out, whatever you want to do there. From there, we'll go ahead and hit next. We get into our finish toolpath. So you can see it's actually picking up our tool from our finishing there. So if you want to choose something different, you definitely can. I'm going to utilize the same tool for right now. And we'll hit next. Then we got our patterns page here. So you can do continuous, starts from one end, works our way to the other. Or you can do alternate. So you can do both. Vertical face, vertical diameter. You can include or not include internal angle walls if you want to. Again, you got this on or off with collision detection, and you also have machine comp G41, G42. From there, we go ahead and hit next, and we get into our patterns page. So again, if you need to set anything up in there, you can definitely do that. And then we got our rapids and our leads, and then our advanced feed rates again. So I'm going to go ahead and hit compute, and this will take a minute here. Oops. And for whatever reason, phasing always just takes a long time, for me at least, on here. So I do apologize for that. Well, that's just taking way too long there. Probably I should have said I got a 1/4 inch of material, and I probably should have made it like, only a couple of passes in there, especially for the roughing. That's okay for right now. Everything else is going to go by real quick after that. And that's our finish pass right there. That should be just a hair quicker there. And again, as soon as this is done, I'm not going to mess with it after that, but our turning job will be going a lot quicker after this. All right, there's our toolpath there. There we go. All right, so you can see here, there's our toolpath. And actually, I messed up on there. I probably should have put a 1/4 inch down below, because now it's showing a 1/4 inch above. So that's my fault in there. I'm not going to go ahead and change that, so sit and shy. Actually, a better. That's probably another reason why it was. So while this is computing, this would be a good chance. Let's go ahead and take about a 5-minute break here. I'll let this compute. We'll come back and then we'll look at some other toolpaths here. We'll talk to you guys in a few. Oh, let's see. Can the post output the extensions like NC text? So Kenneth, you got a question there. Can the post output other extensions like data, like NC or text or yeah, in the and I can't show you right now on here. In the posting page, yeah, you can set it up to whatever output you wanted it. Need. Yeah, as soon as this is done computing, actually, it's not taking that long here, so we'll bypass that little break we're going to take. I'll show you that on there. Yeah, because like I said, yeah, earlier today, yeah, when you, if you download a post processor or got a post modification or post request from our posting department, that those current settings are actually set up for .NC by default on there. If it was a post request, I think they'll either ask you what file extension they'll put it in there for you, or you might have to do it later on. But I'm going to show you guys here in as soon as this is done here on that. So we'll just kind of wait for that. Yeah, it's almost done there. All right, maybe I was wrong, but all right, we'll get there. There we go. So basically what this is, yeah, I went 1/4 inch down. Of course, that's way overdone in there. But, you know, sometimes you're, like I said, your tool may be worn down, that if you just go right to 0, it'll leave some sort of little tip. But circle back here. Under CAM defaults here, current settings, I'm going to look at both of them here, by the way, here, Kenneth. Got machine parameters. We want to go under posting. So right here is your .nc. This is a file extension. You're going to put that in on there. Once you set this one up, and this is under default now, you come back up here to machine parameters, and you hit save as default on there, and then you click OK. The one other place you want to also, if you got any programs previously, right-click on Turning Job, go to Current Settings. Same thing, under Posting, NC File Extension, change it there on that. So 2 places you're going to want to change that in there. But again, we got our You can see here now it's going a 1/4 inch down in there on that. So you're welcome, buddy. So if I want to, I can right click on any one of those tool paths there and I can go to backplot. This allows me to, and then usually in the lathe, I never hit the play button because it goes point to point on there. So it'll just, you'll see the start and you'll see the finish. You won't see anything in between. So I usually just, because it goes down by really quick, I'll just kind of hit the fast forward button, just kind of see. So if there's any changes, and especially, if I'm doing the fast forward, I can zoom in and make sure, everything looks pretty good in there on that. And this goes, toolpath to toolpath here. So in there and finish, again, right there, go past, 0, and then out in there. So then, and that's with the backplot. And it's just real quick. You can see it right on the screen and everything in there. With that, you can always right click and you can blank out the toolpath. Usually that's what I do. If you want to see one or the other, just real quick, you can kind of turn it, just left click on it, and then whatever you left click on, it'll kind of go away. And that's it with that. Next thing we're going to go in and do, we're going to go ahead and look at a turning here. So I'm going to blank it out and collapse it by using the arrow right here. I'm going to right click on machine setup 1 again here, and I'm going to go to lathe turning now. So select geometry. Unlike the standalone, this one I got to pick surfaces here. So I want to make sure I click on all the surfaces. Usually what I do is I'll turn it in one direction, make sure I get all those, and then I'll just kind of turn it the other direction and get the rest of them. There's no set way you got to do this. And yeah, we'll just do that for right now. Everything looks good. From there, I got all my geometry selected. I'm going to go ahead and hit check mark. Again, this brings me into the geometry selection window. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. Now here we got our extensions. Again, if you want to use, I'm going to kind of do this kind of backwards here. Extensions, if you want to angle relative, if you want to go past this a little bit, you can definitely do that, which I will. I clicked on relative to my geometry. So my last thing I picked was that horizontal piece. So I'm going to put in a distance of, let's say, 2 inches in there. Let's see. Let's come back up here. I got OD and I got ID. OD cutting is my outside diameter. Inside diameter, I can do a front face. I can do a back face. Region 1, region 2, depending on where I want to go with this. And then I got primary and secondary undercuts here. Now, I don't have any secondary, so I don't need to worry about that. What that is that it's looking at these 2 grooves here. So what it's going to do with the primary is on your OD and the secondary is on your face here. It makes an imaginary line going across there. So now the toolpath with it checked off on primary, it's only going to come down to this surface right here. It's not going to dip down into here. On there, and other earlier software, earlier systems that we're using, we had to kind of modify that. So in here we got we're gonna make sure we got that in there so it doesn't cut down in the primary here, makes that invisible solid there. We're gonna go from stock. It's going to look at the highest point of our stock and start cutting in there, which it might not work with that extension that I made because I didn't oversize the stock, so my final pass is actually going to go past there. So we can do it from geometry. It'll look at our highest point of our geometry and start cutting from there. Or again, we can set a custom in there. We're going to go from stock. So from here, we're going to go ahead and hit next. We got rough finish, pattern repeat finish if we want. I'm going to use a rough finish here, and we're going to go ahead and hit next. Again, you can set this up in a separate or CAN cycle depending on how your post and your machine are set up. And then we got we'll hit next, and then we got our tool set up. So again, you can use whatever tool you want. Again, we're just to use the same tool that we used before. If you need to set up anything else, go ahead and do that right here. We can do standard or offset in there. Now, because we're using CAN cycles, we're not going to have an option for offset. If we used separate moves, we got an offset. What the offset does is allows you to follow the geometry on there. So, but be careful with that because sometimes it will start cutting air at some point on there. You also have an option for either standard or zigzag cutting on there. So we're going to do standard. Let's go back up here and use CAN cycle. So you can see what the CAN cycle does and does not allow you to do in there. You can do this on or off, or on with collision detection or without collision detection, on or off. We'll do it with collision. We'll check tool holder again with G41, G42 if you need to utilize that. We'll hit next. Again, we got our depth to cut, how much allowance you want to leave, what kind of overlap you want to use. It's almost kind of the same setup as in the facing on there. Again, if I use separate cycles, I have the chip break if I want to utilize that. And we'll do separate moves in the next part that we're going to utilize here. Rapids, what kind of rapids do you want to use? Again, I use default ones because every lathe person I talk to, they use something totally different in there. What kind of lead in and lead out do you want to use in there? You know, I can do horizontal, I can do, you know, angle, whatever I want. Let's see, let's do vertical lead out, that should be fine. And I'm going to hit apply to all defaults, and there we go. Or all operations. Again, I got my advanced feed rates if I need to utilize those. And then from there, we'll go ahead and look at our finish tool. So again, I'm going to use the same tool. Again, with continuous or alternate, on or off with collision detection, you can check tool holder G41, G42. Parameter setup, again, if you need to utilize those. Rapids, if you need to utilize those. You'll see the lead in and lead out. And the reason why I'm using the same lead in and lead out is because I'm using CAN cycles. I'll make sure I get the right CAN cycle call out coming in. And then my advanced feed rates if I need to utilize those. And then from there, we just go ahead and hit compute. Now the difference between compute and finish will hold all your parameters and you can compute it at a later time. You can use that if you need to. And you can see there, it did not, there it is. Now again, I'm going to blank it all out. There's our roughing. Like I said, the roughing's not going to go anywhere because we didn't have any stock to go past. I could have used custom. That would have been fine, but I used regular stock. And then our finish pass went across on there, which is totally fine. But you can also see it didn't, you know, dig in there or anything. Same with the roughing. Now from there we're going to go ahead and look at a grooving here real quick. So again, we're going to select just the geometry we need. And no set order. Oops. There we go. And just kind of turn it and make sure you get the right ones in there. All right. So we'll go ahead and OK that. And we'll hit next. And this time we're going to use from stock on here. I'm not going to use because we've already cut the geometry down. Then we just need to go from stock on here. Not worried about any extensions. We can rotate this if you need to. You can set angles in there if you got that option. We could do an OD, ID, front face, back face. Region 1, Region 2 if you need to. And that just depends on, you know, what's the starting side that's really going to be on. From there, we go ahead and hit next. You got groove, rough, finish in here. I want you to do rough and finish. And we just follow it all the way through. Again, I'm gonna keep it at, let's go to CAM cycles here. And let's see, again, you can set up, however you want to cut that. You can turn, tool width away if you need to, or you can go into the tool crib, choose one of the library. On there, you can go, let's see, groove insert. Let's see, we're doing facing. Yeah, let's go here. Looks good. Shouldn't have to change anything. We can do a standard single pass. Because we're using CAM cycle, we don't have an option for zigzag or anything in our sorting. It's just standard. We can use check collision detection with our tool holder. If you use single, that's going to be either, depending on where our reference point is on there, you can set your pattern up either center, begin, or end on there. We're going to just use standard here. We're going to hit next. Again, set it up to what you need to here. Again, because we're using CAM cycles, all the options are not available in here. But you do have an option for pecking if you want to utilize a pecking amount in here. And that's just, so it's not going to total depth in there on that. This one I'm not too worried about. Again, rapids, same thing here. And then for the lead in and lead out, it's for the rough, it's always going to be set to parallel. But leads for the finish, you have everything active in here. So again, I'm going to use the same lead in and lead out in here. And then we got our advanced feed rates again. And then we got our groove tool for our finish pass here, which again, I'm going to just groove, and we're going to utilize that one there. Use the same tool. We can do a forced cut down. So what that is going to cut one side and then the other. We can set an overlap amount so it goes past center bit, so we can get that cut away. Or in this case, we're going to use basic finish. Go from one side, work our way over. We can use a collision detection or not. You can check tool holder, and then this one you have an option here for either comp left or right if you need to utilize that. From there, we go ahead and hit our parameters, so you can set it up if you need to. Everything should be good there. And we got our rapids, our lead in and lead out. Again, I'm using the same lead in and lead out. I use that apply to all operations. Should be good. And then our advanced feed rates if we need to utilize those. So from there, we got finish and compute. Finish will hold all our parameters. Compute will compute all our toolpath, which is what we'll do here. And there we go. So again, we can blank it all out. There's your roughing, and then there's the final pass. So let's go ahead and we'll come up here to simulation. We'll look at it and start simulation here. So material removal is actually going to show the stock right here. If I click on backplot, it gets rid of our stock, and it just shows our workpiece. You notice that's our solid model. We can look at this either in NC code, time mode, or length mode, whichever one you want to use. Or you can choose either tool, focus, and the part will just move around. You can do machine and the tool will move, or we can do workpiece stock. It's kind of what I use in there. Workpiece will stay stationary and the tool will move for us. We got our control options here where we can step forward, next operation, run, stop, fast forward. You can either step back, step forward, or previous operation. You can restart it. You also have your simulation speed. I usually go kind of start around a little bit just past the 0 mark here because the Lathe, like I said, it's a point-to-point movement. Unless it's going over any radiuses, and it goes really slow. What kind of view do you want to watch this in? You can do an isometric view, which we're in. We're going to do a top view, front view, which I do a lot of times. We'll look at isometric. And then you can have the toolpath on or off if you need to. You can show or hide the tool. You can make it transparent. You can show or hide the workpiece if you want. And then you can show, hide, or transparent the stock if you want to. And then you got toolpath rendering. So if I got toolpath stuck up here, and then I usually click on all operations here and click on segment. It only shows the first half of our toolpath. It's not going to show everything like before on there. So segment just shows a little bit at a time, which is totally fine. Then you don't have to worry about going here and checking off all the toolpaths. We got all these different tabs in here. The ones that I really want to show you is the move list. This gives you an option in here for your move list. So in here I can choose, what operation to go to. This block down here allows me to just roll my mouse wheel and show you, what it's doing instead of hitting start if you want to do something like that. I can also go in here and say, let's go down to operation 5 in here. Left click on that, and it takes me right to the groove roughing, so I don't have to watch everything else being cut in there. Measurements, I usually kind of leave that one alone there, but all this other stuff, we do have videos online that goes through all this stuff in here. So let's go ahead and hit run. It's not a bad speed right now. And you can see here it's doing the groove, or doing the roughing passes, and it's going to come in and do our finish passes, which in this case I'm not too worried about. And you can zoom in and zoom out on here. Your left mouse click, if you hold it down, it does a rotate. Your right mouse click, if you hold that down, it pans it right, left, up, and down in there. So it looks like I had a little thing going on in there. And there it is. So if everything works out well, you like what you see, we'll just come up to our BobCAM tab, hit exit simulation, and that's pretty much it. So from there, we'll come over to our turning job here, right click, and we're going to do a post. So in here, you can hold your control key down and move your mouse wheel, and you can expand or move in or out your text in there. If you right click, you can do a save as, or you can go into NC Editor, which we'll do here. This will reset our initial. And there goes our G code right there. Now, again, I'm not worried about the pro side of this. You can utilize this as a glorified notepad in here. So, if I wanted to, I can go 258 for my program number and come up here to File, Save As, and save it out to my destination. I can choose, whatever extension I need in there, or I can do all files in there if you got a preset setup in there. But you can see in here, here's all your G code. Like I said, it's all color coordinated in there. G codes are all one color. Your X callouts, Z callouts are all different colors. Your text, tool numbers, all that's good call out in there. On there, like I said, you can utilize this as a glorified notepad. But for whatever reason, that's what these little arrows are here. These are flyouts in here. So on the flyout, you got this program number. So if I needed to, I can go, let's go 359, hit apply, and then repost it out. And you can see right there, 359 is my new program number. So you can do it right on the fly. At first I did not a big fan of these flyouts because actually they don't even fly out as much as they used to for whatever reason now on there. And different options you'll have in here. You know, like this one, you can change it to CSS. From here, you can change the numbers without having to go back in, recomputing everything on there. You can just do it right on the fly on there. So, again, you got your posting right here. You can do a save as, save it to a flash drive, network drive. But don't save it directly to your desktop. You can save it into a folder on your desktop because there are rewrite issues, and it will corrupt that G-code file on there. On that. But yeah, any questions or anything so far? All right, well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and break for lunch here. We'll come back at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We'll do a few more things, and then we'll go from there. All right, we'll talk to you guys in a little bit.